Well, good morning, everyone, and namaste to those of you here in the chapel and to those of you on Zoom. Welcome to our first Sunday morning talk in the chapel in quite some time. This will be the first, we hope, of many. As you probably know, those of you who have been following along, there will be no Sunday morning talk next Sunday because Swami Sarvadevananda is coming in that afternoon, and he will deliver a talk that evening at 8 p.m. So next Sunday, the talk is at 8 p.m. here in the chapel and on Zoom by Swami Sarvadevananda. I believe his topic is mantra and initiation. It should be a very interesting talk because he has a lot to say on that subject, being a guru himself and a face of the eternal teacher. So with that, I'll make a couple of other announcements. The chapel is open for your use every day, 7 days a week, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. You're welcome to come here. If there are other people in the chapel, please wear a mask. If not, you're welcome to be without a mask and use the chapel as you see fit. If you wish to see me personally, do me the courtesy of calling. You can call the center's number. It forwards to my cell phone, and we can arrange an appointment. So that's the use of the chapel and appointments. I'm very happy to report that for Swami Sarvapriyananda's visit, July 7th through July 10th, we have, through the grace of Balakrishna Ada, we have secured a room at the Global Mall that can seat up to 500. And so that should be ample for us. And as those of you who know the Global Mall are aware, there is a hotel right next door. So we will not have to ferry the Swami back and forth on the 8th and the 9th when he offers his 2-day retreat on the Ashtavakra Gita. He will be able to take his rest and his lunch at a hotel next door. Balakrishna and I are going next week to make the arrangements for that, for the hotel, and to finalize the arrangements with Shiva Agra. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. The man who runs the place that we're going to hold the retreat. So more details as they're known. Please stay tuned and be attentive to the newsletter, and any of you who don't get the newsletter, which I encourage you to do, but if you don't, then please watch the website or Facebook page for announcements. Can any of you think in this room or on Zoom of any announcement that I might have made that I did not think to make?
1 o'clock laughter yoga today outside.
Jyoti reminds me that this afternoon at 1 p.m. outside, there will be a session of laughter yoga. This is a special day. She'll tell you all about that. So any of you who feel like attending this very fun event of laughter yoga, Jyoti is certified in leading this laughter yoga session. So if you think you'd be interested, please do attend.
It's free.
And it's free. So Anything else from anyone that in the way of an announcement? Thank you, Jyoti. All right. May is a month for the study of Jnana Yoga, Advaita Vedanta. As a Jnana yogi, you practice discrimination, reason, detachment, and satyagraha, insistence on truth, capital T, truth. You seek total freedom from conditions and limitations and union with Brahman. You seek total freedom from conditions and limitations and union with Brahman. Our teachers say all our miseries are and lonely sense of separation. All your misery and lonely sense of separation are caused by seeing inaccurately. An earnest and persistent jnani may break through this misapprehension called Maya. All that was hidden is revealed, and you see the divine presence everywhere, in everything and everyone. So that's the definition of Jnana Yoga that we're using as a frame of reference for the talk this morning. The talk this morning is titled, What Are You Thinking? What are you thinking? Now, that will be explained, of course, but first, as I say each week now, please understand that nothing that will be said by myself or by anyone else in the congregation who contributes is meant as personal instruction for you. This is simply principles and practices of Jnana Yoga and our discussion and commentary on that. It is not meant as dogma. It is not meant as something that you should do. It is simply an invitation to consider Jnana Yoga as a way of doing and being. This is one of the 4 yogas left to us by the great missionary to the West, Swami Vivekananda. So before I begin, is there any reaction, any comment, concern, or question that any of that raises? Anything from your own wisdom or experience, or anything that you feel needs clarification? All right. What are you thinking? Annihilate the mind, destroy the mind, dissolve the mind. These are the words used by a jnani determined to be free of the entanglements of time, space, and causation of Maya. Annihilate the mind, destroy the mind, dissolve the mind. This is the way they see forward to be free of all entanglements of time, space, and causation. Is it any wonder that there are so few who, devoted entirely to knowledge of Brahman alone, are willing to actually live the life of a jnani? Is it any wonder that there are so few who, devoted entirely to knowledge of Brahman alone, are willing to live the life of a jnani? A practicing jnani lives alone, apart from situations that give rise to conversations and thoughts. She ignores the mind, gives less and less attention to its desires, memories, and projections. Finally, it disappears, dissolved in the ocean of consciousness she may call Brahman or the Godhead or the void, or nothing at all. Because as those who have returned from the state of realization of the jnani tell us that there is no thing there. So she may call it Brahman, that is the commonly used name, or the Godhead, which is the Christian formulation, or the void, this is the word used by Adi Shankaracharya, or she may call it nothing at all. Now this, as I said, is a very difficult path, and not the one Sri Ramakrishna recommends for this time in this age of the world. Sri Ramakrishna actually prayed to Kali, "O Mother, do not make me a dry jnani. Let me eat, drink, and make merry, and enjoy the company of the devotees." This is what Sri Ramakrishna prayed. "O Kali Ma, do not make me a dry jnani. Let me eat, drink, and make merry, and enjoy the company of the devotees." This is the way of the bhakta. This is the way of the devotional path. So this is what Sri Ramakrishna recommended. This morning, we will review and discuss these ideas. Please join in our discussion at any point with anything you would like to share. So with that, let me just pause and say, is there anything that anyone would like to say in the way of a comment from their own wisdom or experience, or any concern or question that you would like to raise for clarification? Yes, there's a hand back here.
Yeah, my question would be the difference between advaita Vedanta and Jnana Yoga.
There is Jnana Yoga is Advaita Vedanta. Jnana Yoga is non-dual, the pursuit of non-dual reality, capital R, of course, non-dual reality, which is the meaning of Advaita Vedanta, non-dual Vedanta. So there is no difference. Thanks for the question. That's a good one. Anything else? Yes, dear.
Here's a little 3 sentences that sort of describes or could describe a jnani's path or state of a friend of mine used to say this, speaking of the mind, which is, do you mind? I don't mind, never mind.
Please repeat that, and then I'll repeat it.
Do you mind? I don't mind, never mind.
Do you mind? I don't mind, never mind. A perfect summation of the state of consciousness of a jnani. Do you mind? I don't mind, never mind. Very good, very good. What a nice formulation. Anything else from anyone? Please, let's make this a discussion. Yes, on screen. Someone raised their hand. You're muted. We're not hearing you.
Sorry. It's me, McKaylee.
Oh, hello, Kaylee.
How are you?
Very well, dear. And you?
I'm doing well. I think I'm going through kind of what I passed it, but it was St. John of the Cross, the Dark Night of the Soul.
Wow.
And now it's like I'm going into the life of a jnani yogi. So if you could just a little explain that to me, I'm trying to better understand it by
Well,
quieting my mind.
This is a time of transformation. There's no two ways about it. The Kali Yuga is ending. The golden age of Satyug is beginning. This is what we understand from Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, Vivekananda, Raja Maharaj, this is what is going on. So it's not at all surprising that we question ourselves, which you are referring to as the dark night of the soul. We question our values, we question what we're doing. And when we come out the end of that, we come out resolved not to let that trouble us anymore, which is the dawn of the idea of Jnana Yoga, that let nothing of time, space, and causation be of any trouble to me. So congratulations, Mazel Tov.
I like that, Mazel Tov. That's great. Okay.
There is a deep meaning to the word Mazel Tov. Normally,
Okay.
we think of it just as congratulations or good for you, that kind of thing. The deep meaning, the deep spiritual meaning from Kabbalah of Mazel Tov. Tov is the great word, the unsayable word. Mazel, it means may the great word descend into the depths of your soul and reside there. Mazel Tov. Tov as in Baal Shem Tov, master of the great word, the great Jewish mystic of the 13th and early 14th centuries.
Beautiful. So is that also like you're starting to see your vision goes into like almost like when you have the third eye is opened or you have night vision, those
Well,
goggles on where you can see past.
Each one of us is unique. So just exactly what's going to happen after the dark night of the soul passes away and we make this resolve that I will no longer allow this to trouble me. Do you mind? I don't mind. Never mind. So this is a powerful time, and things happen. Yes, just what will happen for each individual person. As Swami Prabhupada said, this is the dawn of the knowledge of Brahman. When we come to this conclusion that I no longer want to know the things of time, space, and causation. So we have this feeling of I want to know no thing. Then something else happens. And so if this is what's happening for you, again, Mazel Tov.
Mazel Tov, that reminds me of that song, the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Was that from the 1970s or?
I think it was, yes. And with
Okay.
that is, the dawning doesn't take a few days or a few minutes within cosmic time. So we are definitely in the dawn of the age of Aquarius, or the golden age as it's called in the Vedic tradition.
And who sang that song?
Oh dear, I don't remember.
Okay.
If anyone remembers, please volunteer.
Okay. Mazel Tov, thank you. I'll mute myself then. Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Name the fifth dimension was mentioned as the singers of that song.
Oh, the fifth dimension. Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Michaela. From anyone.
Okay.
This
Great
is
to see you again.
This is exactly the kind of discussion we need to have for the congregation to understand what it is that we want to share. Anything at all from anyone. And just speak out, by the way, dears. You don't have to raise your hand. Just unmute yourself and speak out, because I can't see you well enough to necessarily recognize you. If there's anyone here in the chapel who'd like to speak, please.
Shankara, this is Haima.
Yes, Haima.
Can you hear me? How can it be possible without knowledge of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Raja Yoga? just but bhakti yoga can lead to consciousness. It wasn't possible for me. Maybe I'm different human being.
Well,
But
we're
I
each
know
different here.
that
I'm only telling you what Sri Ramakrishna said. Sri Ramakrishna taught bhakti yoga. Underneath that, there was a substrate of karma yoga,
yes,
and also Raja Yoga, because he said practice chanting the name of the Lord, which is a form of Raja Yoga
yes,
meditation. So that's all there. Now Jnana Yoga, uh,
yes,
he didn't he actually uh, taught against the practice of Jnana Yoga in this age. He said it's a very rare person who can do this successfully, and most people who came to him and spoke that and told him that they were a Jnana yogi, some of them he would actually give them a pinch on their behind, and when they said ouch, he would say, oh, I thought you told me this was unreal. So he taught that the time, space, and causation are also
yeah,
reality. It is Brahman is water still, he said,
sure.
water still, and Shakti uh, or Maya, or the world of time, space, and causation, is water in waves. And he said,
Mhm.
water still, water in waves, same water. And he said,
Mhm.
it's only the stick of the ego that we place across this water that makes it
Yes.
seem like it's two different bodies of water. He says it's not so. It is our
Okay.
projection, not a reality.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Yes. Anyone else?
Shankara,
Yes, dear.
I think I've heard that Swami Vivekananda was he a bhakta on the outside and a jnani on the inside?
This is what he said, yes, dear. He said Sri Ramakrishna is all bhakta on the outside and jnani on the inside. He said, in my case, I'm all jnani on the outside and bhakta on the inside. And if you look at his life and the active compassion that he showed, you can see that this manifested itself. But the majority of his teachings here in the West was to correct what he saw as a misperception of materialism and its accompanying duality. And so he taught primarily Jnana Yoga in the West. He also taught Bhakti, Karma, and Raja. As we know, we have those books, all of those books. The Raja Yoga was the only book he wrote, but the others are collection of his talks on Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, relatively thin books. There are not very many talks collected as those, but there are a great number of talks collected in the somewhat thicker book, an inch thick book, on Jnana Yoga, 15, 16 lectures on that topic. And then, of course, there is, for those of you who wish to pursue Vivekananda's teachings in this regard, this very jnani-oriented regard, read his book, Inspired Talks, which was published by the Vedanta, the Ramakrishna Vivekananda Center of New York, Swami Adishwarananda's. There's a very interesting story, which I won't go into now, but very interesting story of how that book came to be. But here was Swami Vivekananda, after having been in the state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi in June 1895 in Thousand Island Park, New York, just bursting like an artesian fountain, uncapped, bursting with the knowledge of non-duality and teaching it to his closest disciples who had gathered with him in Thousand Island Park. So thank you, Laurie, for bringing that up. Yes, indeed. Swami Vivekananda was jnani on the outside, bhakta on the inside. What do I mean by active compassion? He was once in, I believe, Darjeeling. He'd gone there to recover his health. And when he got there, they served him some boiled rice, and some people who were completely impoverished begged for the water in which the rice had been boiled. Not only did Swamiji see that they got the water, he saw that they got the rice, and he left. He could not stay. And of course, so many examples of his compassion are there. He couldn't hold on to money. He would earn money here in the West by giving a lecture, and then and to make $10 or $15 for a lecture at that time was a lot of money. This was the 1890s, and so he would then hear that someone that was among the near and dear of those who were coming to hear his talks, he would hear that they were in financial distress, and he would see to it that 10 of those $15 were given to them. So he was the embodiment of compassion. He was the embodiment of compassion, which of course is not restricted to the bhakta, but it is definitely a principle, the practice of bhakti. Thank you, Laurie. Anything else from anyone? All right. I'm going to read over this that I read before so that you can hear it again and see if there is, again, any reaction. But this is very, it was assembled to give you a real sense of what it is to live as a jnani. Annihilate the mind, destroy the mind, dissolve the mind. These are the words used by a jnani, determined to be free of the entanglements of time, space, and causation, of Maya. Is it any wonder that there are so few who, devoted entirely to the knowledge of Brahman alone, are willing to actually live the life of a jnani? A practicing jnani lives alone, apart from situations that give rise to conversation and thoughts. She ignores the mind, giving less and less attention to its desires, memories, and projections. Finally, it disappears, dissolved in the ocean of consciousness she may call Brahman, or the Godhead, or the void, or nothing at all. Now you can see why this is so very, very difficult a way to live. As a result, Sri Ramakrishna taught that in this age, where he said we are so dependent on food, by this he meant the stimulation and the activities of the gross body. We are so dependent on it. And if all we have to do is look around in our society and see how true this is. Stimulation is everywhere. stimulation is everywhere. And it is because we want it, not because it is being enforced on us. We want it. So Sri Ramakrishna prayed to Mother Kali, "O Mother, do not make me a dry jnani. Let me eat, drink, and make merry, and enjoy the company of the devotees." Now that's what we're doing this morning. We are enjoying one another's company in order to raise our consciousness and replace, as Patanjali says, the lower samskaras of lower ignorance with the higher samskaras of this kind of thinking. So please, anything at all from anyone about this? Yes.
Well, John asked earlier, I think it was John.
Yeah.
Asked about, is Advaita, Vedanta, and Jnana the same thing? And it is, right?
Yes.
So, as far as the writings, those things that you're reading, describes a jnani as living apart and not in being involved in the world, and yet there are many people who see themselves as and are following an Advaita path. So, but are not living that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there like a jnana light? Or no, I mean, I'm not trying to.
No.
I just think this is something that never gets talked about because we have.
Well, it does get talked about, but it doesn't get talked about much openly because there is no way, there is no jnana light. Many people think of themselves as Advaitists, as jnanis. And at the Trabuco Monastery, for example, this was told to me by Swami Yogeshananda after he moved there. In a phone conversation, we were talking, and he said, "Oh yes, those who like to talk about jnana, think about jnana, and discuss jnana," he said, "the monks here call those armchair jnanis, armchair Advaitists. They're not really willing to live that way because there is no compromise. There is, just as there is no real compromise for the life of a Raja Yogi, there's compromise for the Karma Yogi, and not compromise with the truth, but compromise in the way one lives for the Karma Yogi and the Bhakti Yogi. But not so for the Jnani. If you're going to truly practice jnana, you must live apart, because the very act of having a conversation, of whatever gives rise to thoughts, memories, projections, that is what is a barrier to your realization of the divine. This is what is said. Now, I cannot say that of my own experience, but this is what the great teachers tell us. When we are seeing inaccurately and living as with the idea of being a jnani, but not actually living that way, then it is a compromise that simply will not work. You will not realize Brahman unless by the grace of the divine, which of course makes the impossible possible for anyone, as Nisargadatta Maharaj said, everything yields to earnestness. And that is a very important principle. If you are earnest and persistent, universe may yield. But that's not what Adi Shankaracharya or Sage Vashishta or the other great teachers of Advaita Vedanta, that's not what they tell us. They tell us there is no compromise, no jnana light. I like that phrase. I'm going to pass that along to Swami Jnana Yogananda.
I'd like to comment. Can you hear me?
I certainly can, Tom.
So it seems like in our culture, it would be impossible to do that unless you were like a monk being supported by other people, or unless you were so wealthy that you not only didn't have to work, but you could hire somebody to, manage your household.
Right.
Well, yes, exactly.
Like in India, it's a different culture. And it might be more easy, you still would have to be a monk and have other people kind of supporting you. The one way the average person could do this in our culture temporarily is to go on one of these silent meditation retreats where everything is done for you, and where you're not even supposed to look at other people. Because even looking at somebody's face is a type of communication. So you remain silent, you don't look at people, you look at the ground if other people are around, and you can do that in a bunch of different retreat centers, but only temporarily. You can do it for up to 3 months at some of these places. I've never done anything like that.
These typically, as I understand it, these are typically Zen retreats.
Well, Theravada Buddhism, Southeast Asian Theravada Buddhism also, like Goenka has a center actually down in South Georgia where you can do a 10-day silent retreat like that. And up in Barre, Massachusetts, which is a Theravada Buddhist center. And then I don't know as much about the Zen centers. They may have it also.
Well, it definitely is a practice of Zen to do these retreats where you do not interact with anything and eat practically nothing, and
Oh my gosh.
and so
I've done the 1 week. I did a 1-month retreat, but everybody violated the rules and talked, so I can't really count that. But I've done 1 week retreats where we were all in silence for a week, but we ate real well.
well,
But we didn't talk, we didn't look at each other, meditated all day, and yeah, that was quite an experience.
yes, it is. It shakes the ground you stand on.
Yeah. But it seems like what he's talking about, living that way, you really would have to be a monk, and I think it would be very rare to do it in the United States.
It is indeed. There are very few jnanis, and most of them are among the monastics. We know some. Pravrajika Vidyaprana is a jnani and lives that way. She does give talks because she's expected to, but there are a few others, but not very many at all. Anything else from anyone?
Is it kind of similar to Brother Shankara? This is McKaylee from Arizona. Is
Right.
it kind of similar to like The Matrix, that movie?
I
not
never
that
seen The Matrix, so I don't know.
Okay.
Somebody wrote an article about it long ago. Sister Gayatri Prana wrote an article about it, saying something like that. Yes, Michaela, you can look up that article in American Vedantist. Just go to American Vedantist and put in the search window The Matrix, and that article will come up. It's a very interesting article because she's a very interesting thinker and a very good writer. but I didn't see the movie, so I really don't know personal experience.
Yes, I didn't. I don't watch that much TV at all. So yeah, but I'll look that up. Thank you, Brother Shankar.
You bet.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, Uma.
good morning.
Good
Namaste.
morning, dear.
I wanted to make 2 points.
Yes.
One, when you say destroy the mind, dissolve the mind, and what's the first one?
Annihilate.
Annihilate. Now, mind in English has, I think, double connotations. Mind in the sense of emotions, desires, and all the things that Patanjali asked to eliminate.
Yes.
These are what we call the debris or whatever, that these are vasanas, like Swami Chinmayananda put it. So yes, if you interpret mind that way, we need to get rid of all that guttery or bad emotions. What if we interpret mind in this sense of discrimination, viveka buddhi in Sanskrit, that gives you an inner light to examine and differentiate the truth from the untruth, to guide you properly. So if you look at it that way, this jnana will mean knowledge, but with wisdom. And if you look at everything that happens to you in life, from that angle, it can help you live discreetly without going excessively one way or the other.
Oh, you're so right, Uma.
So I think you do not need to leave the world and be a recluse. You can live in the world with an understanding. So jnana to me, and also in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that very rarely it happens that after umpteen number of births, one jnani is born. After births and deaths of cycles of births and deaths. So to be jnani is of course difficult. And it is rare in which Swami is like Vivekananda. When Ramakrishna, of course, was bhakta, pure bhakta inside and out, so was Vivekananda. But he was also a jnani from outside, as you say. And he was. But Ramakrishna Mutt decided to send Vivekananda to a foreign country to spread knowledge and true wisdom of what this Vedanta is about.
Actually, it was Sri Ramakrishna himself and Holy Mother who sent Vivekananda to the world.
So
It was not the order. The order had not yet been organized when he came. But let's talk about this idea of discrimination. Let's talk about what you said about discrimination. As far as a true jnani goes, that is a step along the way. This determination between what is the real and the unreal.
Yes.
Now, the definition for a jnani, and it is uncompromising. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about this if you're talking about jnana or advaita Vedanta.
Yeah.
Only reality is that which is eternal, changeless,
Yes.
and now the third component is escaping me. Eternal, changeless, and something. In any event, infinite. It is infinite, it is eternal, and it is changeless. Now, nothing within time, space, and causation, no thing within time, space, and causation fits that definition.
Correct.
So once the jnani has determined that this is what I want to be beyond time, space, and causation through discrimination. This has been finally realized and resolved. Then nothing of time, space, and causation engages or is allowed to engage their attention. So there is no way of being a sort of jnani if you're really practicing jnana. Now, that doesn't mean you can't be a very successful spiritual aspirant using the tools of viveka, discrimination, and
That's my point.
vairagya, release of that which is not of use on your spiritual path. This is why I say the real definition of discrimination is what does, for most spiritual aspirants, not for the jnani, but for most spiritual aspirants, the definition of discrimination is what deserves my attention. Now, clearly, the world being, as Vivekananda said, tantalus as hell, and that is always just beyond our grasp. The world being beyond our grasp does not deserve our attention, the things of the world. We give it only as much as we must. And so, therefore, we do not compromise with that aspect. But that doesn't mean we can't live as a bhakta, as a karmi, and for that matter, as a Raja Yogi, up to a point. There is a point in a Raja Yogi's life where they also must live apart. And that's why most real Raja Yogis are also monastics or recluse. You can only engage in the world of time, space, and causation up to a point in Raja Yoga, like Jnana Yoga, because it generates thoughts, memories, and projections, emotions.
And the second point, which I said I would like to make, is that doesn't it all depend on your gunas? Each one of us is different.
No, dear.
And
We can never think of gunas as ours. It does not depend on your gunas. You have no gunas. Gunas are mothers and mothers alone. They are her tools for creating time, space, and causation. We have samskaras and vasanas that are the result of our interaction with the gunas over eons. And so it is then that the gunas, again, mother's tools of tamas, rajas, and sattva, touching these samskaras that produce the reality that we think is our own. It is not our own.
No, I don't mean of our own in that sense. Each one of us has certain predilections, personality differences, and preferences or predilections. So one person can be more inclined towards karma yoga. Someone can be better fit for considering the given basic nature. That's what I mean. And
Yes, exactly. Each one of us has, and Krishna talks about this very explicitly in the Gita.
That's what I mean.
We must pursue our tendencies.
Yeah.
We must not try to be what is someone else's way of being. We must follow the inclinations, and not the inclinations of our mind, but the inclinations of our heart. When we come to that knowledge of those inclinations through the practice of concentration, concentration, and meditation.
Brother Shankara, this is Michaela. Can I say something? Can I
Yes.
interrupt? Sorry. So this conversation with Uma right now, that's live, is very interesting because she wrote a book about Gandhi. And I didn't read the book, but I did give it to somebody as a gift. Is, you know, I think he was he had to kind of retreat and get away. He was an attorney and he
Yes.
had to get away to he helping the British to start Uma knows better in it. But he, on a physical level within that reality, he was terminated, which is very sad. But then hopefully it raised the consciousness from that to the higher level of the Jnana Yogi. If you can kind of go into this a little bit, this is what my mind is kind of
Well,
visually reflecting on at this time.
Michaela, this is why Gandhi was able to inspire the following and the loyalty and the tremendous self-sacrifice of those who actually managed to overthrow the Raj by their nonviolent civil disobedience. They practiced satyagraha. They practiced, this is their key principle, that they practiced the truth, that the divine being is in everything and everyone, whether they could see it or not, and most particularly, whether the person that was persecuting them or conquering them saw it or not. So they insisted on this, and that is what allowed them to actually practice. I know I studied this nonviolent social change with the same man that taught that to the young people who followed Martin Luther King and managed the same kind of miracle here in the United States by overturning apartheid in the United States, segregation and racism. Not the racism
Right.
did, but the segregation did.
Now, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but wasn't Martin Luther King a big fan of Vedanta in the end?
Well, there are more than one opinion. There's more
Okay.
than he certainly was a big fan of Gandhi and knew the Bhagavad Gita and other things having to do with Vedanta. But I think he remained a Christian. I think he very much,
Okay.
that I have a dream
Right.
speech betrays, and I use that word in its highest sense. It reveals his deep Christian orientation because he spoke as Christ would have spoken.
Thank
So,
you.
yes, yeah, all of that is there. Thank you, Michaela. Anyone else, dears? Well, please, just you have to speak out. Please, whoever it is.
What I'd like to do is to raise this issue. So then we are talking about the jnani. So are you suggesting that he or she be a complete renunciate? Is that one of the
Yes,
one of the defining characteristics
of a true jnani, yes.
Okay. So he has to move away from everything and then renounce everything. And in that renunciation, of course, he achieves that state of jnana.
Well, you have defined it perfectly by saying move away from everything. All thingness is of time, space, and causation. All realization of the reality, capital R, according to the jnani, is beyond time, space, and causation, which we cannot imagine. Our minds cannot. Our minds, our finite minds, simply cannot encompass the infinite, the eternal, the changeless. We can gesture toward them, we can think about them, but we cannot know them. We can only realize them in the state of advaita, being beyond duality. So, yes, thank you very much. The jnani is indeed a renunciant. And as such, as was pointed out, I think by Tom Carr, must be supported by others. They will not be able to sustain themselves because they don't interact with the world of making money and having a home and all that. So they typically are renunciates, and most renunciates, true renunciates, are monastics.
Brother Shankara, but they can have, like, through an inheritance, they can have, a home or a couple places. That's their birthright, and they're for generations to come, and their children's children.
Well, they won't have children. Jnanis will not have children. Jnanis will not have the entanglement of a relationship. A true jnani will simply not go in that direction.
That's
theoretically possible, but
well, then
jnana
maybe
is something that is developed late in life. It is as Uma pointed out, it is a predilection that sets upon you very early that there's something wrong here. There's something, this time, space, and causation simply doesn't add up. And so this is, again, why there are so few, particularly in this age.
Okay, so what you're saying, Brother Shankara, is that they're kind of born into being a jnani, whereas, like, if a mother has children that maybe are jnanis, or one is a jnani, the mother can still have an entanglement on a physical level, of having a home for herself and being silent in nature and quiet in nature and being able to step outside of the box to view the illusionary dream reality. But so she can still be stable with an inheritance.
Most parents,
Yeah.
are very confused by having a child that is born as a jnani. And as Krishna points out in the Gita, each person is born with a predilection toward a particular yoga. Those people who are primarily of the heart will be bhaktas. Those people who are primarily active people, which is most people, they will be karmis. They may be bhakta and karmi. That's a very frequent combination. Those who are truly indrawn are typically end up in some form of Raja Yoga, some sort of meditation. Those who really at a very early age have this attitude, there's something wrong here. This time, space, and causation business, this world, this universe just doesn't add up. I want out of here. They're the ones who will find a way to become a jnani. Again, very rare.
Okay, so that's kind of, I think, more at the point that I'm at, because I'm a mother that has children, and it wasn't until kind of recently that I had that aha moment. So I do feel that I need to help my children, into achieving their goals, and with that to remain financially stable from my.
One of the greatest privileges to be a parent, to give the opportunity of human birth to others. It is one of the great privileges. It is not meant for everyone, and it is not a compulsion. Holy Mother is very clear about this. Not everyone should be a parent, not because there's something wrong with their ability to be a parent, but they have some other path. But those who do have who are parents, they have given these children that first grace, the grace of human birth. What they make of it from there has to do with their samskaras. It has to do with their karma, their
Correct.
karma. So
Thank
the mother nurtures them as best they can. But I've heard from parents over these years since I've been doing this work, I've heard from parents that have a jnana-oriented child. It's very confusing for them. They don't know what to do with this child.
you. Well, I guess just the parent, if the parent steps more out of and views the physical reality as a dream or as a play, like Shakespeare said that everything's a stage,
Right.
then they can listen more to their right mind. Just like Marilyn Monroe said, didn't she say in the end, she said, it isn't real anyways, right? She said something like that.
Yes. But you see, this is the thing. Most parents, particularly most parents from the several cultures that are very children oriented, most of them, they have intentions for their children, and they want something for them in the way of material success and stability and all of these things that are identified with success in the world. But it is not necessarily a reality that is meaningful for a child that is destined to be a jnani. And this is why it's often confusing for
parents, right? So would you say that the parents need to really wake themselves up to understand the child and what it brought the child or the children?
Kaylee, the problem with that sentence is should. It's not my business to tell
Okay.
anyone.
Okay, then the parents, it would be if they.
It would be auspicious for them to awaken. It's auspicious for all of us to awaken.
Right, because they can. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
But it's auspicious for all of us to awaken. So, so naturally, what would be regarded as auspicious for anyone to awaken, but to tell a parent what they should do, it's not my business.
Correct. The word should be deleted. should. But not a good word. But
the great golfer Ray Floyd said, the enemy of having a great game, and we can apply this to the great game of life as well as the game of golf. He said, the enemy of having a great game are these three words: shoulda, woulda, coulda.
I remember that. Yep, I remember that. Yes.
One more point, Swamiji, Brother Shankara.
Cindy just pointed out there's a sign that says, I won't should on you if you don't should on me. I love it.
I love that.
May I add one more point? As
Please
far
do.
as I know, Brother Shankara, Bhagavad Gita stands out among all world classics, I mean religious classics, for several reasons. One of them is its approach to reality. And it clearly says, Krishna says in the Gita, and I'm sure you know better, that in order to pursue spiritual path, You do not have to leave the world. You do not necessarily have to join or be a monk, or if you can,
Oh, no,
most
no,
wonderful.
no.
If I can, yeah, I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing. I'm just making a point. It is possible to
Well, of
live
course
in
it is.
the world.
The Gita is based in Sankhya Yoga, Sankhya philosophy, and the whole premise of the Gita is that you practice karma yoga. He teaches the other yogas in the Gita, but what does he say is the greatest? It is a combination of devotion and action.
Yes.
This is
Combination.
so you cannot leave the world, and
Yeah.
this is exactly what Sri Ramakrishna also teaches.
Right.
We
So it
remain
is
in the
possible.
world.
It
We
is
remain in
possible.
the world. We see the world as God's grace, glory, and splendor. That this universe is all of that, and that we live and work in the spirit. That everything is the divine.
Yes, and with add to it a deeper understanding, which is jnana.
Yes,
What to be
well,
interested in, what not to be interested in.
the deeper understanding, dear. You keep saying that jnana is the understanding. Jnana is not understanding. Understanding is something of the mind. Jnana is something beyond the mind.
Wisdom.
It is not wisdom. It is not wisdom. It may give birth to wisdom in someone who remains embodied and comes back and teaches it, but it is not wisdom. Wisdom is again something of the mind, something of the thoughts, of our conceptualization, our imagination. All of this is within time, space, and causation, and by definition, jnana is beyond time, space, and causation. So we cannot say that jnana is wisdom. Even Vivekananda said that we use the word philosophy, but actually to pursue jnana, as he says in inspired talks, you must leave all philosophy behind as well. You must leave everything behind and focus on the fact that thou art that. You are Brahman and Brahman alone. And these are words to us because our mind cannot understand. We can use them as pointers to what must be done. But most people are not going to follow Vivekananda in what he teaches in inspired talks. This was given to 12 very close disciples that he gathered to him for this purpose in Thousand Island Park in June and July of 1895. And his
Okay.
Jnana Yoga, as he talked about them, were to correct the idea of duality.
Brother Shankara, this is McKaylee from Arizona again. Can I say something?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I just kind of got a aha moment, if you could please help me. So the brain is physical. It is part of the illusion of the Maya. It is not capable of understanding anything outside the illusion and doesn't want that to exist. It cannot understand the mind because the mind is non-physical. It's outside what you were saying, time, space, causation. So it's two separate perceptions.
Consciousness is outside the mind. The mind reflects consciousness. It is not consciousness, and it is not conscious. It is
Right.
active consciousness.
Yes, because this is in it depends on how you have to step outside of it and view it with the mind, because you won't be able, the brain that is physical is not capable of understanding that, because that physical is part of the illusionary nature, because the reality is there's only
That is,
oneness, and
that is
everything else is fragmented off from that oneness into two-ness, but the reality is there's no two-ness. So two-ness can't understand oneness.
exactly. So that was a great aha moment for you, dear. Now, for those of you who go to the talk notes that accompany the posting of this conversation we had this morning, those will find a copy of the 23rd Psalm. I was going to read it, but it's become too late. The 23rd Psalm is the testimony of a realized soul. In this case, it's a Psalm of David, this great realized soul of the Jewish tradition, of the Hebrew mystical tradition that comes down to us as Kabbalah, though it isn't normally recognized as such. But the 23rd Psalm is very much worth your attention. So if you want to read this testimony of someone who's been there, so to speak, had this realization, and then returned, and they then speak wisdom, as Uma pointed out, they speak wisdom, but it is not that jnana is wisdom. No, jnana is not wisdom. When we go beyond, whatever that means, whenever we go beyond, some people have the grace of remaining in order to teach. And David was one of those. And so the 23rd Psalm is his testimony. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Imagine that in its greatest, I shall not want for anything.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful,
So,
Brother Shankara. Thank
so
you.
please do read, if you choose to, please do
Yeah,
read the 23rd Psalm. And at some other time, perhaps we'll discuss it.
that was in the black and white movie of the Elephant Man. That was he was reading, I believe, in the movie, the original, the 23rd Psalm, when he went and lived with the doctor who took him in.
I
And
believe you're right. Yes.
black and white movie.
So,
Shankara,
yes, dear.
um, I'm not sure how to say this, but for somebody um, who's drawn towards the jnana path,
Uh-huh.
and is studying it, and do you just call them like a jnani in training, or,
Well, yes.
okay,
Well, that we're all, until we achieve realization by whatever path we're on, they all lead to realization. We're all spiritual aspirants in training. But yes, that would be a jnani in progress. Absolutely. But only if they live that way. Those who like to sit around and talk about it and think about it and imagine themselves in that, having realization, as the Trabuco monks say, these are armchair jnanis. They're not really practicing jnana at all, though they may be in training. They may evolve to where they get there. It's not said derisively by the monks. It's just said as an observation that these people, they think of themselves as jnanis, but they're not really living as jnanis. A jnani wouldn't have an armchair and discuss it.
Okay, I understand now. And life's a classroom, and every day we got to wake up and go to school. So we're just like Christ said, we're just little children, and
Yes.
we're,
And,
we're
and
making our way up the ladder in this classroom. So every day, hopefully, you get a little more of a aha moment and listen to that
as
right mind, which many Christians have called, and the Muslims, many different religions have called, as you were said, the Holy Spirit, the descent of the Holy Spirit, when people are baptized, or it's that also that aha moment where you're rising up the ladder. So you no longer are on the lower rungs of the ladder, but you're still moving up that ladder. So this is your classroom.
that's Jacob's ladder. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
Dears, I think it's time to call it a day.
Okay.
We'll close with our regular closing prayers. Thank you all for attending. Thank you all for staying with this. Those of you who did, both here in the room and on Zoom. I'm sure that the reason you did is that you were getting something from it, which is the joy. We share this. This is what it means to study the art of spirituality together. Let there be peace in outer space.
Let there be peace in outer space.
Let there be peace in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters.
Let there be peace on the sky, on the
Earth and in the waters.
Let there be peace in the herbs, the plants, and the trees.
Let
there be peace in the herbs, the plants, and the trees.
May the gods be peaceful.
May the
Gods be peaceful.
May the whole universe be pervaded by peace.
May the whole universe be pervaded by peace.
Let that infinite, universal peace prevail throughout my being.
Let that infinite, universal peace prevail.
Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, 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 and thy blessed benevolence be unto us and to all beings everywhere. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we all be safe. May we all be healthy. May we all be cheerful. May we all have peace of mind. May we all go forward in the knowledge that we are in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. Om Hari Om, Om Hari Om, Om Hari Om Tat Sat. Oh, dearly beloved, make it so. So, with that, thank you, and until next time, which could be as early as Tuesday. So, we'll sign off.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Shankara. See you Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Bye.